Are you ready to heal your mind, body, and soul from the inside out? Welcome to the Real Healing Institute show with Michelle Sinclair, divine healer and spiritual teacher, where spiritual transformation meets practical guidance to break free from limiting beliefs, subconscious pain, and energetic blocks. This is a powerful space for those seeking true healing and enlightenment. Michelle's teachings are rooted in her deep study of the Christ letters and the spiritual awakening that came from her unwavering dedication to divine truth. She helps individuals navigate their inner healing journey through subconscious soul healing techniques and spiritual teachings by uplifting the vibrational resonance of our thoughts, words, and actions that shape the very fabric of our lives. It is time to learn the profound understandings of universal love. The Real Healing Institute show starts now. Hello, everyone, and welcome in today. I am so excited today that we have Dr. Todd Frisch with us. He is the author of What the Face. He reads people's faces. This is not just for health. This is so much beyond that. I'm so excited. Dr. Todd, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Absolutely.
So excited. Would you please just give us a bit about really kind of what it is that you do? You read faces, but just give us a little bit of details about this.
Yeah, so I'm a retired physician. It didn't take my retirement. So s- in my world, I was frustrated because we're trained as physicians to ask what's wrong, and I get that. The problem is I had patient after patient after patient that I knew something was wrong, they knew something was wrong, and all their tests were textbook midnight normal. So the obvious answer was, 20 milligrams of Prozac. And now you don't give a crap about the fact that you feel like crap. It's such a great therapeutic choice.
Mhm.
So I had this moment in my career where I had this paradigm shift, and I asked, what if I ask what's not right? And the problem was there was nothing out there that tells us what was not right. Basically, in my philosophy, you got to be two-thirds sick before medicine shows anything wrong. That's not a slam against my training. It's just, just basically my observation. So looking at that first two-thirds, I studied everything. I studied Ayurvedic medicine. I studied Galen's Four Humors. I studied Jungian psychology. I took a swing at astrology. I got deeply into traditional Chinese medicine simply because there was a lot of books to read. And there was this little kind of blip about facial diagnosis. It's called Mian Sheng in China, Bo Shin in Japan. And I became fascinated with it. I bought a book I think in the early 80s, 81, 2 or 3, somewhere in there, called Secrets of the Face. Very poorly written book, but they had these 9 face shapes in there. That was very fascinating. The author has since passed away. And I just kind of got hung up on it. And I realized there could be some merit here, especially with my newfound thinking with looking at what's not right. Again, we're trained as with the what's wrong mentality. And it grew and grew and grew to the point my daughter was my co-author of the book. She took my ADD infused brain. My book would have been 1,900 pages long. We kind of cut it down a little bit and came up with just a terrific book.
Mhm. It really is awesome. So, what would you say? What's the most obvious thing when you look at somebody's face that you would say that you're looking and you just can see, oh, wow, that person has trauma in their face?
Yeah, I wish it was that simple. Uh, First of all, we all do facial diagnosis. This book just puts some legs to what you see. So I always start with face shape, and that gives me a little bit of clue on how to talk to the person. I would talk to you differently than I would talk to my wife. She has a king face. If a king face comes into my office, her energy or their energy is, can you help me? How long is it going to take? What's it going to cost? Let's go. She doesn't want to talk about sports. Want to talk about the weather. If and that has this strong jawline. You have some bucket quality. We've had this conversation
Mhm.
before, and so the bucket face, which is what I am, we have a thirst for knowledge. We ask a lot of questions. Bucket faces always got me behind in my clinic because they wanted to know why. And we bucket faces, we're the questioners, we're the philosophers. We like a pat on the back. So I would literally pat the patient in the back while I'm talking to them, explaining what they want to know because they want to know about the reason behind what's going on. So if someone comes and they're dancing the waltz, I don't want to do the cha-cha or the swing dance with them. I want to be able to waltz with them. So the first part is about communication. After that, we begin to look at the potential problem areas, also the strengths and the weaknesses. So it just depends on what's going on. In a clinical setting, obviously I had blood work, I would have done an exam, I would have done some other, possibly some medical tests. Now I'm just reading faces. I don't know a thing about them. I didn't know a thing about you. and
Mhm.
and it's kind of fun doing it this way because I don't know anything. Sometimes when you know the person is diabetic, you begin to see things that confirm the fact that they are in fact diabetic. When you're looking at it with just reading the tea leaves, it's a whole different ballgame, and it's much more fun to do it the way we did it when I
Yeah.
when I did facial diagnosis. You read what's there. What's there is there, and I don't have to make anything up. I don't have to confirm anything. I have just complete intellectual honesty, and it's a fun way to do life.
Yeah, it's super fascinating. If for everyone who is watching this, you guys have to go and watch the one that Dr. Todd did on Ghislaine Maxwell because he
Yeah.
did not know who she was. Didn't know who she was. So if you know who she is, you're going to find it absolutely fascinating because it is fascinating what's truly in the face. Um, so you say, the face shapes and things, do these change over
Yes.
time?
Not only do they change, they should change. My daughter is a fireface. She's an incredible artist. She works for another artist named Mary Engelbreit, internationally famous artist. Just, I think you know Mary. Have you spent any time living in St. Louis? She's just an incredible artist. And they bought a coffee shop and they just made it into this incredibly successful business because they brought their energy into that place and they were the face of it, pun intended there. But she had this fire face, which is all about sensitivity. So if I talk to a fire face, what I don't say to them is, look, you're in big trouble. You got to jump on this right now. You got some serious health issues. That fire face is never coming back. You have to say, look, you have some issues. There's three or four things going on. We can't support three things. We have to respect your sensitivity. And I would say, look, normally I would give you two, three things to help this, but we're going to start with one and we're going to start with a half dose. Just, I want to make sure your body is okay with it. And they get a tear in the corner of their eye going, oh my goodness, somebody finally understands me. Now, so Casey gets into this job, this fire face. She would actually in the lattes or whatever, she would actually draw people's faces in it.
Cool.
They would look just a phenomenal artist. Now, so as the years go by, she has to kind of run the show. She has to become a leader. And she said, Dad, I'm getting jowly. And I said, no, you're not getting jowls. You're getting a jaw. And jaw is about that king face, more of a leadership tendency. So now she's a very
Mm.
sensitive leader. They sold the thing, and she's going back to her fire face almost exclusively again. So it's interesting to watch the face change, and
That
like
is
not
cool.
only does it change, it should change. Life happens, and it there are markings that show up on her face that can be events that have been very negative, and some very positive things can show on your face. So we like to just read what's there, and then see what we can from that, what we can do to help a person.
So can you tell the difference, like just looking at the face between acute trauma and something that's been like ongoing a long time?
Yeah, there are signs of chronicity. Acute trauma is a little harder to spot because it takes time for the body to take it in and make the cellular changes. Now, obviously, an injury would have scars and that type of thing, but yeah, chronic is a little easier to spot than acute. There are a couple exceptions. One is traumatic brain injury that can show up instantly, and we can also see that it could be a chronic situation. This is where you'd look for the things like PTSD and uh, post-traumatic stress disorders, and then you look at adrenal issues, and you look at some of the emotional components. There's things, depression, and there's despair, and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, there's lots we factor into our decision-making process.
And so keeping on this about the depression and the despair and things like this, would you say that you have ever saved somebody's life just from being able to see this in a face?
It's uncomfortable to say the answer to this, but yes.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So,
it's Um, yes, and I'll leave it at that. It sounds arrogant to say it, and I just wanted to help sick people get well, and
mhm.
I've seen things that said this person has fertility problems, and I would do things to support their fertility, and they've been through IV therapies and all these in vitros, and nothing happens, and all of a sudden they become pregnant, thinking they never could again.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, so those are good days. You help somebody with hemorrhoids. There's a certain allure, If you help somebody that wants to have a child that has been told it's not going to be possible, and then they get pregnant, man, that makes for a good that makes for a good career.
That's so rewarding.
It is.
Well,
It is.
I'm so excited for you because that Department of War contract that you got. So,
Yeah, that
do you want to
was.
tell us a bit about that? This is
Yeah.
exciting news.
So, I've been doing this for 4+ decades. This is not anything new to me, but it gets thrown into the woo-woo pile. It's a little odd. Um, until you have it done, everybody thinks this is
Hmm.
bizarre until you have it done. And then it's like, oh, how could he possibly know that? Uh, so now I meet someone and they say, look, I think this is $1 billion idea, your facial diagnosis. And I said, did you see a billion with a B? And he said, yeah. And I said, doctors will love this thing. It's great. He says, you're not thinking this. How about HR? How about coaches? How about dating sites? How about? So yeah, he's hiring an individual, wants me to read his face to make sure he's making a good call from from should I hire this guy? And I read the guy's face and I said, the guy's really good. He's straight shooter, very, very intelligent, but he's had a history of traumatic brain injury and he's got some PTSD. So this guy, the one guy tells the other guy that he's going to have his face read, and the other guy says this is a bunch of crap. Now the other guy is now the CEO of a company. He's a ex special ops, 26 years in the military, just a brilliant guy. And he gets his face read, or he gets this information and is blown away. So with his connection to the military, we kind of find a place that this might be of value. And it's good. If a soldier is diagnosed with PTSD and it does not kill himself, it's going to cost the government north of $600,000 per soldier. Now, do the numbers and the amount of PTSD that is there. So early detection is of great value. So through Doug's, this military guy, his connections with the military, they become somewhat interested in this. And I have a little check in my spirit because I can spot Charlie Manson's too. So and they like Charlie Manson's, and so I don't want to go to bed with these people. We did, and on a Monday, I get this was in June. I get a call from Doug and said we got to be on this South Carolina military base on Wednesday, and I go, yeah, that's not happening. I live in northern Wisconsin. There's no flights. I had to drive a long distance to hook a flight to Chicago and then to Charlotte. Anyway, Doug says, look, I can explain the technology behind our AI version of the book, which they're making this AI version. He said, but I can't explain how you do what you do. And I said, all right. So we're there. And I didn't know we were the belle of the ball. They were going to make a decision where they were going to use our technology. And Doug does his part and explains the technical aspects of it. And then I come up and I said, look, we would love this. We would love this contract, but what we would really love is to make a difference in these soldiers' lives. And I said, we have the ability to early detect traumatic brain injury, TBI, concussion. We in early detection of PTSD, depression, and despair. And some guy in the back raises his hand and says, what's the difference between depression and despair? And I said, interesting question. The world of psychology and even the dictionary puts them as synonymous. They're not. Depression is, if a soldier's got PTSD and they're depressed, could they commit suicide? Absolutely. But depression is, I'm depressed and this is the reason why. When it gets into despair, there's a hopelessness component. There's a sense that there is no answer to this problem. It's depression 10x. And I said, that's the soldier that's going to have the suicidal ideations. And they're the ones that want to make a difference in their lives. They don't understand what I think they should understand. I think they should use this on new recruits because people are going to come and join the military that are going to have PTSD and they're going to have traumatic brain injuries. Don't send them to combat. let them work on planes, let them do something, work in an office. They may not like that, but if we could use this technology and not let them get worse, this is where you're going to save the money. True preventative medicine, in my opinion. I hope they get the idea. I can't push them in any direction. I'm certainly going to make some suggestions, but it'll be interesting when they sign that. After that guy's question, he ended up being the head of the VA's head of the suicidal prevention hotline. And he said, he said, I'm fascinated by this. I know you're right. I just never had it presented that way. And it needs to be presented that way. I think the world of psychology is going to buy into what I'm doing and our technology before medicine does, because we have to have the double blinds. We have all these rules, and I hate rules. Standards and values, I like. Rules bug me.
Mhm.
And medicine likes their concrete scientific data. And you must use logic and all this kind of stuff. But sometimes you have to use intuition, and there's a difference. They can be used together to the benefit of the patient. Sadly, medicine doesn't like things that they can't quantify and qualify. Um, Wish it were not so. But I do believe the world of psychology is going to go, wow, this is cool. I think we can use this. And they can. It'll make such a difference.
It will. Are you doing trainings for doctors and for like, have you got this set up that you're educating people in
Yeah,
this way?
we sure do. And we have a course you can take. We just added a huge 2-hour section of the course. Um, that trains you and you get certified. Now, nobody's certifying us, so we certify you as, being astute in reading faces. I will tell you, the people who have taken this course, I will help them with their first few diagnoses of different faces, and everybody gets a B plus. Or an A at the first one. After the first one, they're all straight A's. It's
Hmm.
unbelievable how, when you put the effort in to learn the subtleties. Now, you're gonna get, taking this course. You can get 85% of what you need to know to be really good at reading faces. The other 15%, yeah, that's 40 years.
Yeah.
Just I'm just doing it. So
Mhm.
when somebody has, say, a jade face, they're like a diamond shape. They're very wide jaws. They're very hard. They're almost mean spirited. They're a very difficult patient because it has to be their idea. But to know that this person is a true jade face, or they've had something in their life that has hardened them. Jade is very hard. Jade faces are very hard. That subtlety is something that it takes a lot of years of doing, that they aren't truly a jade face. They've just had life events that have hardened them. And I can spot that very easily, but it takes some time to get to the nuances of that. So you'll offend a few people at the beginning, calling them something that they're not, but eventually it just works in, and your brain gets it, and it's quite a walk to walk.
It's super cool. So, like, I found out about you through our friend JJ. So,
Yep.
JJ is the one who films all of Dr. Todd's YouTube videos and things like this. And we had a retreat this summer, and he came out and he just started reading people's faces. And I'm like, JJ, what are you doing? This is amazing. And he's going around the room telling everybody their face shape and what it means. And everyone was just fascinated by this. It's so fascinating. So you read my face a couple weeks ago, and I think the most amazing part is truly the details that you can really see so much
You really can.
details.
You really can. Events will be marked on the face, whether there's lines, lumps, bumps, whatever. And everything on the face has some kind of meaning. And it's
Mhm.
just, again, putting legs to what you see is important, because we all do. You see a friend, you go, "You okay today? Something bothering you?" What did you see? What triggered that comment to come out of your mouth? Well, visually, you saw something. Something's not right.
Mhm.
And we see it all the time. And you can watch actors, and you can just see them transform their character into someone that's different, that's under this duress or whatever it might be. And how do they do that? Well, they do that with facial features, and it's absolutely fascinating.
So one that I thought was really neat was you were talking about ears, and if they weren't the same height, then that could
Mhm.
mean that, your parents were divorced
Yeah.
at a younger age. So what do you think this means? Like, do you have the meaning behind why these things appear the way that they do?
Well, yes. We don't have the time to go through it. This is a 2 hour explanation, but let
Yes.
me just sum it up. Basically, the ears represent your kidneys, and in traditional Chinese medicine, they don't have a word for genetics. It's called ancestral energy, and it comes through the kidney meridian. So the ears tell us a lot about your connection to life. Well, connection to life is family. And your earlobes, if earlobes are very attached to the side of your head, you're very attached to the family. Now that attachment can be very positive and can be very toxic. Mine are really hanging down. And does that mean I don't care about family? No, I love my family. I just don't get into the weeds with it. I go, it's just stuff and let it go. But somebody with real attached ears, they can be the mama bear and papa bear in a real aggressive way. So, when the ears are in a different position, or if they're flat against the head, it indicates you're hypersensitive to sound. Mine are aggressively so. I actually suffer from a condition called misophonia, which means hatred of sound. This is that gum snapper 3 rows behind me. I just want to end their life with my popcorn box. And if I'm crunching, it's fine. But if somebody else is crunching at the table and I'm not, it bugs the snot out of me. I wish it were not so because it just is it is the most awful entity. And they're doing construction outside. I just want to just rest my eyes, and I kind of get there and I hear beep beep and trucks, and I don't hear that. I hear the clock tick 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 tick, and I just lose it. I got to unplug things because I can't handle that. I can't take that sound out. Now, if your ears are forward facing, it means you hear everything. You just don't listen. You like to hear your own voice. So the ears, from a diagnostic standpoint, there are more parameters that the ears play a role in than any other facial feature because there's
Mm.
so much going on. But your life kind of starts through that ancestral energy of the kidney. So it's important. And different parts of the face represent different times in your life. They also represent kind of your early teens and that kind of stuff and your teen years. So oftentimes that divorce happened during their teen years, causing them to have this shift.
Hmm. That is super interesting. We will have to have a 2 hour podcast at some
Yeah,
point so
I
we
can
can hear
imagine.
about all of this. So
I get
what
it.
I know you talked about your daughter and her face changing, but what's the fastest change that you've seen in, like, let's say a patient's face or something from an emotional healing that was caused?
Yeah. So there are two things that will show up very, very quickly. One are something called adrenal lines. They kind of come from the inner, uh, uh, it's called the inner canthus, the inner portion of your eye, and it sweeps across your cheek. And these lines indicate adrenal function. And adrenals, they have lots of jobs, but the two main jobs they produce cortisol, your stress hormone, and cortisone, your anti-inflammatory. They both come from the adrenal cortex, hence the corta word. And then you have these lines right here, these deep lines you have and I have.
Mhm.
They're called falling lines, F-A-Ling, not falling, but falling. Falling means purpose and spiritual strength. You throw a little dirt in mine, you can grow potatoes. And they're so deep. I know I'm on this earth. I know my purpose. I'm living my purpose. I've lived my purpose, and I have immense spiritual strength. And that's not going to do with religion. It just has to do with an understanding of spiritual phenomena beyond the average person's understanding. And you're not born with these simply because you have to experience life and see what happens to you that forms these things. And these lines form over a desire to kind of help mankind. Vladimir Putin does not have falling lines, and at his age, he should. So sometimes the diagnostic indicator is what should be there, it isn't. So he's an iron face, strong, stable, stubborn. If you look at my lips and your lips, very straight line between our lips. That means we're straight talkers. The other side of that, we don't like people that lie. It
Mhm.
annoys us. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
off with their head kind of stuff. Putin does not have that. He's got a wavy line between his lips, which if a straight line is a straight talker, then a wavy line is someone who doesn't tell the truth. So here's a guy, strong, stable, stubborn, has no purpose, no depth of spiritual strength, and doesn't tell the truth. Let's put him in charge of the country and see how that goes. That's going to work
Um,
out real fine.
yeah.
It just is a bad idea. So
Mm.
I don't vote based on politics. I vote on faces.
Mhm.
When we had Trump and Hillary going at each other, they're both iron faces. They're diplomatic, persevere, take it to the end. And one did it one way and one did it the other way, but they both were iron faces. So Churchill was an iron face, Putin's an iron face. They're very dedicated. They're very diplomatic. some would disagree with Trump being diplomatic, but whatever. Again, I don't. Obama was a fire face. He was very sensitive, too sensitive. He took things too personal. Not a trait that's real positive. John McCain would have been the worst president in the history of this country based on facial diagnosis. He wouldn't have got my vote. I don't. Well, I wouldn't say if Adolf Hitler ran against him, I'd probably not vote for Hitler, but knowing him, but he would have been a very poor choice simply because of what his face told me.
That's so fascinating. So I know, well, even in your wife, Linda, sometimes, are thinking, oh, people think this is woo woo. I don't think it's woo woo, but maybe that's because I am, but it's science. It's actual science that you're seeing in the face.
It is. It's just, you can't use the parameters of Western medicine to qualify and quantify it. Therefore, they throw it in the woo category. I don't. It's based on 5,000 years of truth.
Hmm.
Before we had X-rays and MRIs and CTs and blood work, even we had to have some way of assessing a patient. And in traditional Chinese medicine, they used facial diagnosis, they used tongue diagnosis, they used
Hmm.
the ear and acupuncture, something called auricular therapy. It's just a microsystem, and we know about foot reflexology and hand reflexology. We know about iridology, the whole body's mapped on the color portion of the eye, and that's been interesting test in iridology. They've done some studies and found it to be exceedingly accurate by the people that have to have accuracy. And look, my feeling is I'd rather get a patient well and not know how it happened and thankful for the miracle as opposed to understanding with great scientific acumen why the patient didn't get well. What good is that?
Yeah.
It's well, I know exactly why they didn't get well, but
Hmm.
they didn't get well. Again, I'd rather have that miracle occur and go, wow, that's pretty cool, and just send them on their way.
Hmm.
So it has to do with what your starting point is, and the problem with we doctors is, you know, you're not going to have a low IQ and become a doctor. They you wash out early. You don't make it, and so it does create this weird. So I once had a dream, and it was two words in this dream. It was James Earl Jones' voice 10x, and it it said, Dr. Todd, you need to sit down for this one. This message I'm going to give you. And it said, I'm going to tell you the sweet spot of life. And the sweet spot of life is absolutely one half distance between ignorance and arrogance. Now, I have been ignorant, and I don't mind being ignorant because I can get a book and I love to learn. I'm a bucket face, so I love to put things in my bucket. I love to learn. Sadly, you can't spend any time being a doctor and not walk a little on the edge of arrogance and sometimes walk right down that road. Not proud of that statement, but with aging, I've certainly hopefully left that. And again, I'm that is the sweet spot of life, one halfway between those two. And what a message, man! That came in a dream, and it's like, yeah, I ain't gonna
That's
figure that one.
powerful.
Yeah,
That's powerful. So I'm sure I already know the answer to this, but have you ever had a patient come in and they had no clue that they had something pretty serious going on, but you could see it in their face?
yeah, happens all the time. Matter of fact, I was never cranky with a patient. I just believed I'd meet people where they are, and I just wouldn't get aggressive and pushy with people. I danced with them the best I could. The one exception, when I saw something that was absolutely serious medically, a medical condition, and they needed to have that checked out. Because I did a lot of things in the natural world of medicine, uh, whatever term, holistic health, I had many patients that wanted to abandon Western medicine completely, and they wanted to rely completely on nutrition and thinking and prayer, and that's great. I think it's wonderful, but there's great value in Western medicine. And when I saw something that I knew could be handled medically and it wasn't, I'd get cranky with people. I'd say, look, you got to do this. I had one guy said, if you don't do this, I'm not going to treat you. And he had it done. And I knew his bowels were in trouble. And he had some constipation issue. And when I did the exam, I said, look, uh, he wanted me to do acupuncture, board certified in acupuncture, and he wanted me to do acupuncture for this bowel situation. But in the workup, I could tell it was something that was beyond the scope of acupuncture, and I suggested he have it checked out, and he wasn't going to do it, and he kept getting worse, and I said. I said, look, I'll do three treatments, but if there's no change, then you have to seek medical care. Well, he did the three treatments. He did not improve at all, which I kind of knew he wasn't going to. And then he just quit me, wouldn't come back. Um, eventually his pain got so bad, he ended up in the ER. His wife was also a patient of mine. And and 3 months later, he was dead. He had cancer of the colon, and it was just way past where it should be. It was past where it should be when I met him, and I knew it. And he just wouldn't go that direction. Sometimes don't let your philosophy get in your way and create stupidity. Your philosophical approaches can be fanatical. Fanaticism is a very dangerous entity.
Um, if people would just take the advice that the doctors are giving them, but sometimes it's not good advice. However, when it's coming from you, I know that it is. And you
Yeah.
genuinely see, you've seen in my face, you've seen in JJ's face. I watched the other day how you read his face and his wife watched. That
Yeah,
was just
yeah,
amazing because it could not
that
have
one.
been more accurate. And she's
Yeah,
laughing and it was just
yeah.
wonderful. But thank you so much for being on the show here with me today.
Well, just
We're going to have
absolute pleasure.
all the links down below. So if anyone wants to get your face read by Dr. Todd, you can absolutely do that, or you can go on. There's the AI on his website that you can put it in and it'll, do a little
Well, that's
rundown for
not
you.
ready for the public yet. We're only
Oh, it's
working
not.
no, not for the public yet. Eventually, I think it will be. I'm an incredibly brilliant businessman because I know I suck at business. So I have other people handling that part of my world because I'm not a good businessman. So that we're in the development stage there, in very early development. We got into this thing, which is wonderful. We'll see how this goes. It will go well.
Mhm.
We'll advance it from there. That everything I do there'll be an AI ability. So you'll just take a picture front, left and right, and within seconds it'll give you a complete report. I see that in the future, which is just stunning for me.
Yeah.
And now, what you do with that falls on your shoulders.
That is going to change people's lives.
Yeah,
And I really do see the future of this, more doctors learning this, psychologists, all kind of people using this because it's such a valuable tool.
it,
Um,
it
but
really is.
but thank you so much for joining me.
Um,
We are out of
yeah,
time here, but this has been amazing. Thank you so much.
thanks.
Well,
Have a
great.
great
All
day.
right. Okay. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for joining the Real Healing Institute show with me, Michelle Sinclair. Tune in every second and fourth Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com for more empowering ways to spread love and set yourself free. Together, we'll elevate the consciousness of the planet. Stay connected. Follow me on social media, subscribe to the podcast, and explore the Mental Cleanse series on YouTube. Ready to go deeper? Book a session with Michelle at therealhealinginstitute.com. Until next time, keep healing, keep growing, and remember, love is the only way.